Hi, Ben here from Supercoach Insider, and I am here to break down my team and show you how to unmess up your side. So, if you're like me, anyone that went the kind of mid-price strategy, it is not the way to go, it seems, this year because rookies are popping up, they're banging off, they look like they're going to make a lot of cash, which then makes you think when you're looking at obviously premiums as well. Those expensive premiums are having some huge scores as well, which that kind of leaves you in this in between spot. If you're someone like me, where you put some value in your team, I'm going to go a young, I'm going to go a short, I'm going, um, Martin and looking at Fisher, Wines, Hewitt. So I went like big out on value as a way to kind of use them as stepping stones. But then the issue is that yeah, those stones that I'm stepping on are sunk. So so that's pretty much with my team at the moment. Scored 1909, had a few spuds on field. I've got some corrections that I need to do, and I'm going to try and explain the thought process in the meantime. First of all, I do apologize. I haven't got too much out there at the moment. I've got a wedding happening. So, my wedding happening in a week and a half. So, I probably won't be getting on too many pods at the moment until that kind of happens because that's taking my time. Plus, my boss is away. So, now I'm kind of, taking on that responsibility as well and sharing a staff of 44. So, there's a lot of crossover. So, we have one big faculty. So, I'm kind of taking a whole bunch of responsibility with that, plus then the 2 kids and all the other side of it. So there's the super coach that I love to do, but also, I wish I didn't pick short. Hey, like, I think their first game, I'm trying to have dinner, copping a hard time, obviously, for, shouldn't be on my phone because up in Queensland, the bounce happens obviously an hour early. So, I'm like, "Oh, look, short will be fine." So just put him in my side, and I'm like, "Let's just back that in." Back him in over a Sheasel, even though Sheasel's 50% owned. What a great idea that was. So anyway, after last week, I was in this unusual situation. As far as I hate using trades in the first round, right? And I hate for that knee jerk reaction. But after an extra round of data, sometimes things change. And Fisher kind of played halfway on the wing, and I thought Fisher would have some good scores. But then with the rookies that went well, the premiums that went well that I wanted, the injuries in defense, the premiums that didn't fire for me, Hewitt didn't look great. Wines was kind of okay without being super impressive. Short wasn't that impressive. Young wasn't that impressive. And then I had Fisher wasn't that impressive. So I'm like, I didn't want to come into this week with 6 things I wanted to fix and have rookie corrections. So that was one thing I didn't want to do coming into this week. So I took a little bit of a gamble. Um, I brought in Sam Berry, not because I'm happy about it. Um, Sometimes last year when you had this situation where you're kind of like, "Oh, I don't really wanna bring that guy in," then, they just bring out a couple big scores or make cash. So, that's part of the FOMO. I didn't wanna miss out on cash, and I thought he could be a play to make it happen. Scored 60 odd with, without kicking a goal, had tackles and pressure. And, yeah, Berry wasn't that great. So, I mean, the thing that the Suns do have in their side is that coming up, they do play, I think, West Coast and a couple other easier sides, and games at home, so he might rebound. But the issue with Berry is that, well, we only have so many spots on our field, and we have to rely on some rookies to play on field and score. Now, putting out a 20 is an issue when Flanders got pushed forward. Cadman's a key forward in my team. I should probably bring out my team. Anyway, so I'm sitting at 60,000 ranked. I slid a bit. It is what it is, right? So it is early days. A lot of the people that went Jackson and a few others with some of the rookies and more premiums kind of have worked out really well. The difference at the moment pretty much being the my captains have been good, my midfield premiums have been good. So I'm quite happy with that side of it. It could be a lot worse if I didn't actually have those midfield premiums in my side, but it's my defense. So Short stunk it up, Young stunk it up. Instead of me having Houston and Sheasel, which I should have had, that's a lot of points that I've just missed out on. So the thing of reshaping here for me is that now I have an issue of I have premiums that I don't really like to sideways trade, but there's a big risk in holding at the moment. So that's the correction I think I need to make. Um, and I'm going to go through a few of the available options and my thoughts on them as to whether I'm interested or not interested. Take it with a grain of salt because obviously, there's only so many things you can do. Now, if you have a good lineup without the issues that I've got, then for sure, like I'd be interested in moving into Powell and going early on the Darcy or these other options if you don't really have many other options to fix. So, um, last week I did trade. I really wanted Sarong. He looks super impressive. I wanted him preseason. I should have picked him. I didn't pick him. And the way that the rookies kind of shaped up with a few others going off, I'm like, okay, like guns and rookies could be a play here. And my team is not set up for guns and rookies at all. Um, and I didn't want to wait the week on something. So I'm like, okay, and it was nothing on Fisher. It was nothing on Martin. Um, Martin's inefficiency in that first one, I'm like, okay, now I have some doubts as far as like he got the pill, but then those who get a lot of the uncontested ball, and we saw that with Fisher this year, and even short, like a lot of people are getting plenty of ball, but if it's uncontested, if you are slightly inaccurate with your disposal, I'm finding they're not scoring quite as well at the moment. And I don't know if it's just a small part of the start of this year or just a trend that's, a slight adjustment or not, but um, I feel that those getting uncontested ball, unless they're kicking it long to a target and getting lots of meters gained, I feel like they're stagnating a little bit. Like even short, butchered it a little bit, sure, right? But 21 touches or whatever for 60 super coach. And he had mostly kicks, right? Um, not many meters gained. So you kind of, maybe it's the backwards, sideways or the inefficiency that seems to be hurting them. So for me, I was like, okay, Martin might be a great player, but I've already seen now that, okay, I don't know if he's going to be, he might be borderline top six. I can always bring him back in later if he starts to actually go well and he gets the DPP and I then look for an upgrade. But I'm like, I'm going to readjust. So for me, it was, I went Fisher down to Berry, more just to kind of free up some of that cash and try and restructure my team to more guns and rookies. I then moved Martin to Sarong, and I moved Gibcus to D'Ambrosio. Now, I went early on that because I thought, okay, if he goes well again in the next week, he's going to be a must-have. I thought his role looked pretty good. Like I know, defenders, etc. He might not score as well, but I just felt like he looked more settled this year, so I was pretty keen to back him in. So I took a risk on that one. I took a risk on Berry. Now, obviously, Berry backfired. Um, I can't trust him on field. So it's a bit of an issue at the moment for me as far as Berry. Now, I'm glad I did that though, because if I didn't actually make those moves, then all of a sudden you're going, okay, well then I would have had 6 or 7 issues, and then I would have been so far behind that I'm kind of going to have to accept the fact I'm going to have to burn some trades to realign my side, and then hope to have a good run with some injuries, and then hope that I can pick up some value at the right spots. So at the moment, Short and Young don't look anywhere near top six, which is kind of depressing. Short's not very highly owned anyway, so that's a big issue because I'm getting hurt from that. They're both looking to drop like 40K, whereas like Sheasel and Luke Ryan, etc., they look like they're actually moving up. Now, I am tempted to keep and upgrade around them, and then when I get to the buy, then maybe I can move them at the buy, and then maybe I can try and get and use those extra trades for a loophole and all the rest of it. But I think either way this week, I need to make some trades. Now, the rookies I'm actually quite happy with most of my rookies. Clark did well, had a full game. Dangerfield was tight, so he might get more of a run. Sanders played a full game, so that was really good. McKercher did well. Roberts did well. Berry's the big liability for me. So I think Berry kind of has to go, got subbed out. They're getting beaten Adelaide, which is a big issue. When they start losing, he's gonna come under pressure. Right now, it has to be Berry, Crouch, and the style of play, because it's just not working for them at the moment. So yeah, Berry got subbed, so that's not good. Fife got subbed, not good either. Except for the fact that Fife's saving grace was, I think they came off, is it a 5 or 6 day break? They were up by 15, 20 points or whatever at three-quarter time. Coach, they had a sub that was a midfielder. So it's kind of a like for like, everything aligned. And then they just said, look, you've had a short break, you're a bit tight in your back. Should we just call it? And they're like, yep, done. So put him on ice. Now, I know some people are saying, oh, like it's happened once, it's gonna happen again. But you know, I don't mind that management issue early on because they're getting the load into his body. A few games in, he might be a little bit sore just because it's been a while, right? So I don't mind it now. Still scores well. I think they still need him. Still got 69 super coach. So I don't think it's a dire issue. I know Chris and a few others are like, oh, this week or next week, Fife's out for me. But he'd got 100 the week before. So I'm not too concerned with him just yet. If it becomes a trend and a pattern, then you go, okay, I've got more data. This looks like a management issue for the whole year, but he's got so much more cash to make. He hasn't even had a price rise yet, and people are talking about dumping him after 1 week, like one price rise. So I think that's the part where I want to be patient with some things, and then other things that's kind of looking at your team going, okay, they don't look like they're going to be top six. Who does look like they're going to be top six? And then do I need to shift? So if young and short are only going 90s, then I'm going to be missing out on 10 to 15 points per game, which is 300 super coach in the first part of the year. Whereas it looks like Sheasel looks like he's top six for me at the moment, just keeps racking up, and he's 50% owned. So hurt factor is big. So if you don't have him, it's not much to kind of realign that one. I quite like Luke Ryan has the whole back line to himself, super efficient in that role because most of it's long kicks, intercepts, kickouts as well, which was the one part Short kind of hurt on. He had 3 kickouts, and I just keep seeing Rioli and Vloston going back in there. Short getting pushed up more to like, oh yeah, the flanking up towards the wing, and it's just not really working out. So he doesn't look that clean. Freeze against making like kind of making him to defend, and then 3 kickouts played on once. So I was like, come on, mate. Like seriously, you get 2 free disposals here and you just didn't even want to do it. Um, so I think, yeah, if they're not top six, then I'm looking to have to try and bring other people in a loophole around them, which I could do, but I could be a lot of points behind if they don't even pull it out to get towards that 90 odd average. Um, and it's a real like toss too, right? So Short did well the first week, Floston wasn't there. So then you kind of go, okay, the last 2 weeks he hasn't been great. An 87, a 64. Maybe that's what I'm going to get from him. And he does have a couple of poor scores here and there, but puts out some hundreds, has a big score here and there. But um, yeah, the not top six part could really be an issue. So for me, Dacos, Stewart, Sicily, I think will still come good. So I'll put Sicily in that mix of someone who I do want. Houston, um, Luke Ryan, Sheasel. Right, I've got one of those. So that's the part where I wouldn't mind going a little bit heavier to kind of fill that side. Now, Zach Reed's an interesting one. I am looking at, I think trying to think of the Fremantle player's name in defense. So I am looking, hopefully, if maybe in a week I might be able to flip Reed to this person. Let me just go filter Fremantle as a defender. Um, Warner got knocked out. So 63 Supercoach did well enough up until that point. So I'm looking to see if they name him again. If he does well, then I might be able to go read to him next week just to make some cash. If that doesn't eventuate, I'm even just tempted to wait until that round six DPP entry. And then McKercher can go into defense, and then I can upgrade Reed to a midfielder or a forward and have some flexibility there. I don't mind being able to kind of try and loop someone maybe in defense, although Horror and Hose just play the same game, which sucks. But when I'm looking at the team, I don't want to feel so desperate that I'm getting pink or someone that might be an extremely slow burn when I might just kind of save that trade to look for someone later. Now, it is a risk reward because at the moment, like you'd rather someone make money over the next few weeks. So is it round 3, 4, 5, 6? So it's 4 more weeks until I can actually make that move. I'm going to hold a week and hopefully go with Warner when he comes in. That would be ideal. Otherwise, by that point, it's 3 more weeks. I'm like, okay, well, if there's no one there, I might just have to wait and do that switch. So, yes. Speaking of must-haves, I'm glad I started Green. I just think even if you started him, he scored 287 Supercoach points over 2 rounds, which means he's already bought you this week off as far as points. Now, some people are getting a bit, tricky with it because yes, he has gone up in cash a little bit, but he does look like a must-have, right? The way he's playing, the role he's playing, that contested ball, He just looks on song, right? And getting rid of a guy averaging 140 who is a captain option or a VC option, I think is very dangerous. So I'd probably stick with him. Butters looks like, extremely dynamic, the high ceiling player, which was probably one of my strategies trying to come into this season was looking for people with a high ceiling that can make an impact. And he's done extremely well as well, right? And then Sarong fits into that because I feel like those four look like they're going to be top 10, which is why I really moved aggressively to get Sarong just to kind of secure up that extra asset in that midfield. Now, the ruck line, though, Grundy is a bit of a pain in the ass. If I didn't have so many issues, I would be super keen to get English in. Concerning, though, Darcy did ruck quite a bit. It could be, the opponents they were playing with Moyle up against, for the Gold Coast. English still had plenty of time, but, Darcy did have a good chop out. That could happen again this week with West Coast. I completely get the desire for people to bring in Darcy early this week. Reasoning is if you're like me and you've got, like Sexton, you've got Cadman or Berry or Green, Flanders or Took or whoever you've got, if you're missing quite a few players, right? Darcy against West Coast at home when they don't have a ruck, and he got quite a few hitouts last week. It's tempting. He's someone that could definitely be on field to help with your points on field this week and your ranking this week. So I understand those that actually want to go early and take that risk because if he plays against West Coast, I don't think they're dropping him unless he gets injured, which is the risk, right? But I can't see him having a poor game against West Coast when they don't have a ruck. Um, which just makes it dangerous for me. So Darcy had 12 hitouts, 2 goals. Yeah, killed it. So I had half the amount of hitouts as English. It'd be interesting to see how many ruck contests I actually got to. So Darcy, I can understand that. Look, I'd be interested in going Berry to him for sure. But the issue is I've got double Berry. So I've got a bad fruit salad, a spud salad, let's call it, with berries. So yeah. Um, Adelaide Berry, half forward, pushing into the contest, subbed. Did okay, just not great. So I think he's the biggest liability. There's no one else really on my team that I want to get rid of. Now, Wines and Hewitt, I am open to, but I give them at least a week. The reason I'm open to it is they could be my passport to get Flanders, one of them to Flanders, and possibly the other one can go and get to like a Took, right? That is a possibility where I could have some money left over, and then that way I'm going so Berry down to Darcy, for instance, and making some moves that way. So that's the consideration I am looking at the moment. The only thing to get in the way of that would then be Warner. If he does come into the defensive line, then it would be Berry down, Wines or Hewitt, whoever's sputting up to Flanders, who I think will be a keeper, and move that way. So Wines and Hewitt, I was optimistic. Didn't have them as a keeper, but I thought they might spike a big score, hopefully early on, and really get that generation going. So both have the capacity to go 120 to 140 Supercoach. It's still definitely possible, but now again with the rookies and a few other things where I think Flanders looks like a must-have. Hook is definitely great value, still good value, so I might pick him up next week. They're the things I'm trying to stay open to. And if you are trying to play for overall, like me, if I was playing for leagues, I'd just keep young and short, right? Upgrade around them, have a good loophole. Both have a big ceiling on their day if they want to. Um, and then I'd kind of wait and see how that progresses, right? You've already copped the low scores. I don't think Young's going to average 66 for this year. He'll probably average still 90 to 100, which means that there are some big games coming. And I've already copped his low scores. His role's good. He's getting CBAs. He's in the midfield. He's just, I think, playing defensive mid. Handballing a lot for a guy that they got in there to kick the ball. Like, dude, kick the ball into forward 50. That's why you're there, right? Handballing a lot, giving some frees away, and just not looking that clean. So, I'd like to keep them both, but again, it's a big risk to keep them both. Like, I could be absolutely in agony every week. So that's the temptation to get rid of them. Otherwise, yeah, Berry and the two berries are probably the biggest liability for me. Otherwise, I'm not that upset. buy my team if I can kind of fix it up and then burn those trades. So there we go. I might go through this week as far as what I'm looking at. I'm not too fast. Let me just have a quick flick through players and let's go via cash cow. So this week, look, I think Dempsey's a fairly good play. He's just more expensive, 150K. I already messed up on the last 150K guy. Um, I think there's definitely some money there, like against Hawthorn, particularly. If he scores 60, he's going up 60K. So I don't mind him too much. Dogs next, and then North, he should be able to kind of exploit with the run as well. Just, the gut running and two-way running of Dempsey and Geelong, I think could be beneficial against the Hawks and against North particularly. So there could definitely be some money there. Um, kind of it'd be nice, if he kicks goals as well to help support that score. But I thought he still racked up quite a few pills, even in the VFL end of last year. Was still getting like 20 odd touches in the VFL, in that back end of the year. So I think there is definitely some appeal to Dempsey. I'm just not sure if I have room, to be honest, unless I'm just taking the 50K loss on Berry, which you know, I think Berry could still make another 50K. So it's, I don't know, like for like, unless I'm going to actually free up that cash where I can use it to go to a Flanders, etc., then I might look at that instead. But if you have him, awesome. That's definitely a good consideration. Big Harry's back in. Uh, North Melbourne don't really have the best defensive line, so he could go really big this week. Look, I don't know if I'm gonna be bringing in 400K key forward, but, some people did it with Hogan, didn't really work out for them. This one might be the play. When you have a look, I think when they have a look at their opponents coming up, Fremantle also had some decimated, defender stocks in the last couple of weeks. Adelaide as well, can be quite, undersized in some capacity. So, I mean, still really good defenders, but you're kind of looking at those who can kind of hold Big H down. GWS will probably be the main one where he'll get some good attention from a classy big defender, should I say. So I don't know if I'm going to really go that one. Powell's a big one I do want now. I've looked at it, I've thought about it, but the issue is like I could try and I would have to go Berry down, right? Because that's how I have to make cash in order to make it happen. Berry down and the other berry up to Powell, and then sideways one of my defender premiums, which means that yes, I get Powell on field. He's a better option than Berry. He's at 100K to throw on top of him. On field scorer, lots of CBAs, good role. Um, but there is definitely some risk there. So I know a few people are just backing him in. He had the role, I think, first preseason game, and then it disappeared, and then it's come back in the preseason somewhat. Timken got obviously KO'd in the first one, so maybe he was not going to get as much CBA time or whatnot. There's a lot of mids kind of running through that section. Timken, I think, played a little bit more forward this round, so there's another consideration. If he gets back to full health, will he be in? Will Phillips, how much is he banging on the door to impact Powell? But look, at the moment, the CBAs are there. The role's his. Can he string together another 3 or 4 weeks with that role? It'd be interesting. And when you have a kind of look at it, the big score as well, 128, I think it was 129 in the cycle now as well for his scoring. So that now puts him with a 95 and a 129 for a guy that's 312K is not too bad. Um, Carlton, Brisbane, Geelong might not be the easiest midfields to rack up against. Geelong maybe, and even like Hawks. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So I can see the appeal, but for me, if I go and bring in a Powell, when I look at my team, I'm like, okay, well, how am I getting Darcy into my team then? Like, who am I cutting? I'd have to cut a Flanders early or someone else, early just to kind of put in another rookie. And I don't really like flipping rookies as much unless it looks like the guy is a must-have that's going to make 100 to $150,000 more than the guy you're getting rid of. Um, and I still think it's too early on Flanders. I know he played forward a little bit, but I still think it's a little bit early. I want a little bit more data before I kind of go and get rid of a guy who, should actually still make quite a bit of money. So that's just my thoughts on him. Carroll's the other one. Now, it says, I think recently it came out Walsh could be 2 to 3 away. I really want to see what happens with their side now. So Wiedering's back. You've got Elijah Hewitt now. No, not Elijah Hewitt. Hollands. Back Elijah Holland's now back into the I think suspension's done, so will he come straight back in? How does that team line up? Because Carroll for me, even though he was impressive, he could still be pushed back towards the interchange or even a sub candidate. That's the concern for me. So I want to see how the teams match up. Do they shift any magnets to kind of, people that were in defense? Do they push out or onto the bench? How they actually match up? So that's what I am waiting to see. But yeah, he could make a little bit of cash as well. Was sub, still scored pretty well. Points per minute is really high. And if he goes to 43, which he could easily make, that's 50K. So he is someone that I am looking at bringing in. Got a 74 last week. So there's at least a fairly decent price in there. The other one is Jeremy Sharp. Now, just chipping away with those 60s, Sharpie. Now, he is, I feel like I underestimated him a little bit. I thought there was a few people coming back in, like Driscoll and Chapman and a few others that were kind of lingering that might impact his role a little bit. But he seems to be solid enough at the moment. So he is someone that I am considering, bringing into my midfield mix. I'm not quite sure at the moment which way I'm going to go. Sharp for me could just I don't know if I really wanna bring in a Sharp to my team. If I started him, I'd be kinda happy with what he's presenting, but I don't think it's he might make 100K, 60, 60, 60, 60, make 100K. The consideration for me, though, is that if he makes it to, like West Coast, Richmond, etcetera, on the outside, he might make a little bit more money. So, can he make it another 4 to 6 weeks? I guess we'll see. So easier when they're winning games. As soon as they lose, then you get pressure from outside. Yeah, and it probably helps that with their defensive line, they might even be able to free up Young back there, Brayshaw back in a little bit more sharp, and get a little bit more security. But that is the consideration for that. Now, otherwise, I think I'm pretty happy. I think if you've got Buku Kamas, I think you're pretty happy. He did extremely well on the weekend. Tailed off a little bit, 65, but with some intercepts. That's his role. Goes through periods where he just racks it up. I think you're pretty happy with that one. And yeah, Heaney just still banging for me. So let me have a look at the week after. It's going to be interesting now what happens out of Richmond. So I think Hopper's now out for I think 4 to 6 or something or other. You've got the same thing. So Saints now, you got Brad Crouch, I think's out as well for 6 to 8 maybe. So Windhager could get more CBAs. He did on the week just gone, got 108 or something around that. So he's someone that I have looked at in draft leagues. Um, he's fairly cheap too. I'm pretty sure. Like if I have a look, um, and he's a defender, which kind of helps. Windhager 323. Um, Played the two, so 322,000 gets a mid roll, most likely pure up mid for the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks, you would assume. Which means for the next 6 to 8 weeks, he could average 90 to 100 and possibly even make some cash. You know, uh, I don't know. I guess there's been crazier things in this world, but as a defender, makes him a little bit more interesting that people might be appealed to. Otherwise, yeah, Darcy's the one going to make plenty of cash. That one. And I guess we'll just see one more data for these players anyway as to how they go. But the main part is, yeah, I think how I'd like him. It's a risk, but I dig it. And yeah, I think it looks like Dempsey, Darcy, etc. So when I go back to my team and let's have a look at what I'm going to do. Now, I wish I had Darcy as captain this week. That'd be really nice. Nothing like Supercoach app. So like me like this. Um, so my team at the moment, let's go and optimize this a little bit. So we get Williams on field. The good thing anyway with Hoare, I think he got subbed out as well. 12 subbed in, sorry, 12 super coach. At least May, yeah, him out might provide him a bit more security. I think Lever had a bit of a knee niggle, so that provides him a little bit more security. Um, so yeah, Berry will be out, which will then bring Sanders on field. At the moment, I was kind of going Sanders, McKercher, Roberts kind of lingering on the bench. But I think they've proved enough that if they get the time, they're good enough scorers, and most people will have them on field. So you might as well just have them on field, loop occasionally if you need to, and then kind of go from there. So, um, anyway, so this is pretty much where I'm at with my team. Now, one option I have looked at again is so next week, Berry to Darcy probably looks ideal. I could definitely use Darcy this week, but then I miss out on a Carroll or a Dempsey or someone like that, right? Now, let's go. We'll get rid of. Oh, I guess you can almost if Berry plays, he still could make money. So that's an interesting part, right? Now, Sam Berry still has a break even that is serviceable, a break even of -3, which means that if he plays this week and he lines up this week, it might not be a bad ploy to actually keep him and hope to make a little bit of money. If he somehow spikes 100, I'll fall over out of my chair and then might keep him for a little bit longer. But Berry, look, let's have a look at Gold Coast, right? So I hate cutting someone this early, but then after that performance with the 24, I can't have him on field. And how can I then go, okay, well, Sexton and Cadman, like, okay, maybe Sexton playing him on field, but you can't trust Berry anymore for an on-field role, right? Whereas at least, even Sexton's 47, they're just a liability at the moment where I don't want too many of these up and down forward rookies on my field, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. Now, it's fine when you're having best 18, which we have again coming up soon. But when you go with next week's best 22, it's going to be a bit of an issue. So that's what I'm thinking about next week. So at least Darcy, I'm like, okay, well, I might be able to put him on field hopefully and see how that goes if he keeps that role, which means that it would be Berry out for Darcy, and then I can sleep a little better at night. Now, Berry can go for someone else, but let's have a look. So yeah, once they get through, they play GWS next, which will be hard for him. Hawks in Adelaide could go okay. Oh no, Adelaide Hills. And okay, so that must be against GWS. Hawks, Sydney, West Coast, Brisbane North. Now, it sucks, but there is a good chance that Berry could actually spike a couple of good scores here, reset it, and actually do well. Um, it's a consideration, but then also Berry put out a 24. Like, I didn't really rate him in previous years. I thought this was his new upcoming role, the pressure forward, half forward, getting up the ground, getting tackles, getting disposals, snagging a goal or two. Didn't really work out. So this is also the draw that I'm really considering why I want Tuke and Flanders, because when they go into Hawks, West Coast, North, it's yeah, I think that's where you're really going to want these players, particularly Flanders, just because of that forward eligibility. So that's why I really want to try and move fairly early on those players in my team. So let's go. So Dempsey could definitely come in. I could keep Berry for a week, Samberry for a week, just because he's not moving. He might actually make me some cash and surprise me. I still think he's actually a better player than some others. So let's have a look at how much cash I can actually get. So let's go complete this one. Berry for Dempsey. Now I hadn't really considered Dempsey too much before this point, but their draw and this is glitching out hard. And then the other options I have, so other Berry, I could have actually then gone and made a change for him, and I could have traded him out. I can still trade him out to Powell, but then again, I'm keeping one of Short and Young. So the most likely scenario that I'm going to do, unless I change my mind, which is also possible, is just going to burn those trades. I'd love to get Lockie Whitfield, but again, I need to get rid of these guys before they drop 40K each. And it would be Ryan and the Shees, which I think is probably the best bet as far as value. Guys that are going up. So even if they get injured, they should still make money before that point. But I think that they look like they're more going to be a top 6 defender, which then gives me 3 guys I think are now top 6 in there, 4 guys I think are top 6 here, 1 ruck I want to keep, 1 I want to move on, and then I can then look to make all my upgrades. Downside, with Dempsey, I've only got $39,000 of cash up my sleeve. Otherwise, it would be another 30K, so I'd have more like $70,000 cash, which should then be enough to go from, say, Wines to a Flanders if I need to, right? Now, Berry in this spot, though, would most likely become Darcy unless something really significant happens in that meantime, because then it would be Berry out, Wilson goes in there, and Darcy into my team, and then I can then use, say, Dempsey, Darcy to kind of round out that side. So, yeah, work in progress. Let me know how you're going. Let me know if you are struggling as far as trying to make those corrections like me. Are you on Powell? Are you fixing your defensive line? Are you going to keep them and ride it out? So there are many different strategies at this point in time. Um, yeah, I think a lot of people that got bought the value train are the one's probably regretting at the moment, but it's Supercoach. It is life. And now we got to try and salvage this situation to try and get back on the right track as fast as possible. And the reason I'm going for, say, Sheasel, it's 50% owned, so a little bit of security to make sure the damage is minimized. And then Ryan, 5% owned. So if I can get a guy who isn't really owned, and if he keeps on with some big scores, that can actually help catch up and excel to recatch the field. So interesting week. I've got Green missing and a couple of rookies, but yeah, I think the big crunch will come when Sydney obviously have theirs. So that's it. Let me know how you're traveling. Let me know if you've enjoyed it and your thoughts on the matter, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.